Mickey, Minnie and Goofy Keep Their Eye on the Ball is the 7th episode of Me and Mickey Let's Play Sports with ESPN, and there are elements of this one that I think are great, an improvement on previous episodes, but then it took a bit of a strange direction that I didn't really like, so it's not terrible. There are some really good moments, but it's not perfect. This one starts off with the characters explaining they're going to be keeping their eye on the ball. We get a bit of comedy from Goofy when he takes it literally, but then they explain that it's just about passing the ball, watching the ball with your eyes so that you can catch it with your hands and you have some hand-eye coordination there, which I think is a great topic to explore, and it makes it a bit more accessible as well, because up until this point, it's pretty much been about kicking the ball with your foot, which is fair enough, but 7 episodes in, there hasn't really been a lot of inclusivity, and that's something that I think is really disappointing. But we actually have something that's a bit more accessible to potentially a wider audience here. And what I particularly loved is that they start practicing with a balloon, which I think makes it a bit more accessible again. Not everybody has a football or a big ball like that, but also it means that it's more accessible indoors as well, because throwing a heavy ball around the house may not be the best thing to do, but a balloon weighs next to nothing. You can easily play with that indoors, and there are a few good things about this. The first is that it is, in my opinion, more accessible. And I also love the fact that, and there are spoilers here as I discuss how things played out, of course, the balloon pops. And they say that's okay, balloons pop sometimes. And I love that because, understandably, popping balloons can be quite scary. And when it happens, quite often, children in particular will get very scared. It's a loud noise. It makes sense. But they were just kind of nonchalant about it. It happens. It's not a big deal. And I like that. And I really like that they just kind of, they brushed it off. Then this is the bit where I kind of liked it and I kind of didn't. Now that the balloon has popped, they have to play passing with the ball, and Mickey throws an imaginary ball, a pretend ball, to the viewer, which I liked. I thought that was a great thing to include. It could also mean that people who maybe don't have access to balloons or balls could play pretend, and I think that's still going to be a lot of fun if they can use their imagination. And then the viewer passes the ball to Minnie, and the ball magically becomes a real ball. And I found that to be a little bit jarring. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I don't think it was the right decision. They should have just kept it as the pretend ball. The animation for the pretend ball was quite nice. I thought it looked quite good, but then it magically became a real ball, and I think that was a really bad decision, as it kind of breaks the imagination aspect and ruins it a little bit, so I didn't like that. But there are several things in this that are certainly an improvement on previous episodes. It's more accessible. There's a bit more variety here, including the balloon. I think was a really good decision. And seeing that balloons pop, it's not a big deal, I also thought was a really good thing to include. So in general, I'd say it's actually a lot better than a lot of the previous episodes. Still not perfect, but it's a lot more inclusive, a lot more accessible. And obviously there will always still be some limitations for some people, but compared with previous episodes, it's offering something a little bit different. And I'm still disappointed that it's basically, this Let's Play Sports season is basically just focusing on footballs and similar sized and shaped balls. And looking forward, I haven't looked too much, but just based on the thumbnails, it doesn't look like that's going to change much over the final 3 episodes. And I think that's a huge missed opportunity. But I will talk more about that once we get to the end and I can reflect on what's happened. But this one I do think is a huge improvement and has a lot to offer, and ultimately, while it's not perfect, it's certainly a decent episode of Me and Mickey.